Imagine buying your dream home, only to realize you've stepped into a nightmare. High crime, sinking property values, unaffordable taxes, and neighborhoods that feel like they're collapsing from within. Today, we take a journey through Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, but not the version you see in postcards. Instead, we reveal the 10 worst cities to buy a house in Pennsylvania in 2025. Fasten your seatbelt, because this trip is going to change the way you see Pennsylvania forever. As we leave behind Pittsburgh's shining skyline and head south, the road draws us into McKeesport, a city once powered by steel, where factories roared with life and paychecks supported entire families. But today, the picture is very different. McKeesport's crime rate is nearly double the U.S. average, and more than 30% of residents live below the poverty line, struggling just to get by. The city's population, once over 50,000 strong, has now fallen to fewer than 17,000. And the decline shows no sign of stopping. The economic reality is even more sobering. The median household income is just $29,000 a year, less than half the national average. Unemployment sits around 8 to 9%. But the deeper truth is that stable work is rare. Out of every 10 residents, only about 3 actually hold steady jobs, while the rest face unemployment, underemployment, or have given up on the workforce entirely. Walking through McKeesport, you'll find entire blocks lined with abandoned homes, boarded windows, and silent factories, constant reminders of the industries that disappeared decades ago. Yes, houses can be bought for under $50,000, but low prices come with a heavy cost, a lack of opportunity, growth, and hope. Here, moving in doesn't feel like building a future, it feels like being pulled into a past the city has never managed to escape. 9. Chester, 3 to 4:30. Driving along the Delaware River, Chester greets us with boarded-up windows, graffiti-covered walls, and a silence that feels unsafe. Once an industrial hub, Chester has now become one of the most troubled cities in Pennsylvania. The crime rate here is among the highest in the state, with violent crime far above the national average, leaving many neighborhoods unsafe after dark. Poverty grips the city, nearly 30% of residents live below the poverty line, and the median household income sits at only around $36,000 a year, far below the U.S. average. The city's population has fallen to about 32,000, less than half of what it once was. As families continue to leave in search of better lives, unemployment remains painfully high, with rates nearly double the national average, meaning that out of every 10 residents, only about 4 manage to hold stable jobs, while the rest face unemployment, low-wage work, or no opportunities at all. Chester's education system is also struggling, with underfunded schools and low graduation rates making it difficult for young people to break free from the cycle of poverty. Yes, Chester sits on the Delaware River, just minutes from Philadelphia, but opportunity here doesn't knock, it's already left town, leaving behind a city trapped between survival and decline. 8. Reading, 4:30 to 6 o'clock. As the lights of Reading flicker against the night sky, the city looks alive on the surface, but behind the glow lies one of the deepest poverty crises in Pennsylvania, and in America. With a population of about 95,000, Reading is the 5th largest city in the state, yet more than 35% of its residents live below the poverty line. That's nearly 3 times the national rate, meaning 1 in every 3 families is struggling just to survive. The median household income sits around $35,000 a year, less than half of the U.S. average of nearly $75,000. And while homes may look affordable, Reading is weighed down by some of the highest property taxes in Pennsylvania, leaving families with little chance to get ahead. Jobs are scarce and unstable. The city's unemployment rate hovers around 8 to 10%, nearly double the national average. In reality, out of every 10 working-age residents, only 2 or 3 hold steady jobs. Many others rely on part-time or low-wage warehouse work, where paychecks don't cover the cost of living. Crime is another shadow over the city. Reading's violent crime rate is about 60% higher than the national average, making safety an everyday concern. Add to that the impact of the opioid crisis, which has fueled overdoses, homelessness, and drug-related crime, and the picture grows even darker. Education struggles to provide a way out. The Reading School District, one of the largest in Pennsylvania, faces overcrowding, underfunding, and graduation rates well below the state average. For children, opportunity often feels out of reach before it even begins. Yet amid the hardship, Reading's Latino community, more than 65% of the population, brings resilience and culture. Festivals, food, and family traditions keep the city alive, even as poverty and crime weigh it down. Homes here may average under $200,000, but affordability hides the cost of high taxes, unsafe streets, and limited opportunity. For many who arrive seeking a fresh start, Reading quickly reveals itself as a city where survival overshadows growth. 7. Wilkes-Barre, 6 to 7:30. Nestled in the Wyoming Valley, surrounded by rolling hills and the Susquehanna River, Wilkes-Barre looks scenic from a distance, but step onto its streets, and the weight of decline becomes impossible to ignore. Once a thriving coal mining powerhouse, Wilkes-Barre built its identity on hard work and industry. Today, much of that strength has vanished. The city's population has fallen to around 44,000 residents, less than half of what it was at its peak. Many who remain face economic challenges. The median household income is only about $42,000 a year, far below the U.S. average, leaving families struggling to keep up with rising costs. The job market tells an equally troubling story. Unemployment here remains higher than the state average, hovering near 7%, which means that out of every 10 working-age residents, only about 5 to 6 hold stable jobs. The collapse of coal and heavy industry left behind few opportunities, and while warehouses and service jobs have appeared, they often pay too little to lift families out of poverty. The economic void has fueled deeper problems. The opioid epidemic has hit Wilkes-Barre especially hard, bringing with it overdoses, homelessness, and broken families. Crime follows closely behind. The city's violent crime rate is about 50% higher than the national average, and property crimes remain common, leaving residents worried about safety even in once busy neighborhoods. Downtown tells its own story of decline. Once filled with shops, restaurants, and thriving small businesses, many storefronts today sit dark and shuttered. Empty buildings line the streets, a reminder of better days long gone. For outsiders, the charm of the valley quickly fades once they see how little opportunity remains. Yes, Wilkes-Barre still holds beauty in its landscape, its river, and its history, but for those who live here, the struggle outweighs the scenery. Poverty, unemployment, drugs, and crime have hollowed out the city's promise. What once was a coal mining powerhouse, is now a shadow of itself. 6. Hazleton. Drive up the winding hills into Hazleton, and the first thing you notice isn't the mountain air, it's the silence of empty storefronts and the weight of a community struggling to hold itself together. Once a booming coal town, Hazleton has faced decades of economic decline. Today, with a population of about 30,000, the city is marked by hardship. The median household income sits around $38,000 a year, far below the national average, making it difficult for families to afford rising costs. Unemployment remains a persistent challenge, hovering near 7 to 8%, meaning that out of every 10 working-age residents, only about 5 hold steady jobs. The collapse of coal left behind little industry to replace it. Warehouses and low-paying service jobs dominate the local economy, but they rarely provide stability or upward mobility. Crime has become another pressing concern. Hazleton's violent crime rate is nearly 40% higher than the national average, and property crimes are on the rise. Families looking for safety often find themselves surrounded instead by uncertainty, where even walking downtown after dark feels uneasy. The opioid crisis, already devastating much of Pennsylvania, has not spared Hazleton, fueling addiction, overdoses, and crime that further burden the city. Layered onto this is rapid demographic change. Over the past 2 decades, Hazleton has transformed into a majority Hispanic city, with Latinos now making up over 60% of the population. While the cultural shift has brought new traditions, businesses, and energy, it has also created tension as the city struggles with integration, strained resources, and an underfunded school system. The Hazleton Area School District, one of the largest geographically in the state, struggles with overcrowding and low graduation rates, leaving many children without the tools to break the cycle of poverty. On paper, Hazleton looks affordable. Homes here average around $120,000, far below national prices. But cheap doesn't mean opportunity. High crime, unemployment, and a fragile local economy mean many who move here quickly discover that affordability comes with hidden costs. Hazleton may look affordable, but cheap doesn't always mean safe. 5. Erie. The view of Lake Erie is breathtaking, waves crashing against the shore, sunsets painting the horizon gold, but step away from the waterfront, and the city tells a much darker story. Erie, once a proud manufacturing hub, has been shrinking for decades. Its population has fallen to around 93,000 residents, down sharply from its peak of over 130,000. The people who remain face difficult realities. The median household income is just $42,000 a year, far below the national average, leaving many families stretched thin. Poverty is widespread, with nearly 1 in 4 residents living below the poverty line. The city's job market is fragile. After the collapse of heavy industry, Erie turned toward healthcare, education, and small-scale manufacturing, but unemployment here still lingers around 7%, which means out of every 10 working-age residents, only about 6 hold reliable jobs. For many, employment comes through low-paying service work or seasonal jobs, which makes building a stable future almost impossible. Crime adds another layer of struggle. Erie's violent crime rate is about 60% higher than the national average, and property crimes remain a constant issue in neighborhoods once considered safe. Abandoned homes and empty factories contribute to a sense of unease, especially after dark. Then there's the weather. Erie is known for some of the harshest winters in America, with lake-effect snow burying the city year after year. Combine that with high utility costs, and families already living paycheck to paycheck find survival even harder. Housing seems like a silver lining. Homes in Erie are cheap, often averaging just $120,000, but the catch is resale. With so many people leaving the city, demand is weak, and property values rarely rise. Buying a home here can feel less like an investment, and more like a trap. Despite its natural beauty and lakeside charm, Erie struggles to retain its people. Young professionals often leave in search of better opportunities, and the city's aging population makes recovery even harder. Here, beauty hides the burden. 4. Altoona. Railroad tracks cut through Altoona, once the beating heart of America's rail industry. Now a fading reminder of what was lost. The trains still run, but the city they pass through feels stuck in time. Altoona, with a population of about 43,000, was once a symbol of industrial growth. The Pennsylvania Railroad made this city thrive, fueling jobs and prosperity. But as railroads declined, so did Altoona's fortunes. Today, the median household income is just $46,000 a year, and with limited industries left, opportunities are few and far between. Unemployment in Altoona hovers around 6 to 7%, which means only about 6 out of 10 residents of working age hold steady employment. Most available jobs are in healthcare, retail, and small-scale services, positions that often pay low wages and provide little security. For young professionals, Altoona offers little incentive to stay, which is why the city's population continues to shrink. Education is another challenge. The Altoona Area School District has long struggled with underfunding and declining enrollment. Many schools face resource shortages, larger class sizes, and limited extracurricular opportunities, making it difficult for students to compete with peers from more prosperous regions. Without strong educational support, the cycle of poverty becomes even harder to break. Housing seems attractive at first glance. Homes average around $140,000, far lower than the national average, but demand is weak. With fewer people moving in and more leaving, property values have stagnated, and reselling a home here can be difficult. For many families, buying in Altoona feels like a one-way investment with little return. Crime in Altoona is lower than in some Pennsylvania cities, but the problems here are more subtle: drug use, petty theft, and a sense of hopelessness that weighs on entire neighborhoods. The opioid epidemic, already devastating much of the state, has found a foothold here, leaving scars that ripple across generations. Altoona's story is not one of danger, but of decline. It is a city where progress slowed, jobs disappeared, and opportunities slipped away. The trains still pass through every day, but unlike the past, they no longer carry prosperity with them. It's a place where the trains still run, but progress has stopped. 3. York. We head into York, a city with history etched into every brick, but also with shadows in every corner. Founded in the 1700s and once an industrial hub, York wears its past proudly, but behind the charm of old architecture lies a much harsher reality for many residents today. York's population sits at about 45,000, but nearly 30% of residents live in poverty, a figure far above the national average. The median household income is just $47,000, which makes it difficult for families to keep up with rising costs of living. While jobs do exist in manufacturing, healthcare, and warehousing, unemployment hovers around 6%, leaving many households with little stability. In fact, out of every 10 working-age adults, only 6 or 7 have steady employment, while the rest rely on inconsistent, low-paying work. Crime is one of York's biggest struggles. The city's violent crime rate is almost double the Pennsylvania average, and property crimes like burglary and theft add to the daily stress of living here. For families, safety concerns outweigh the city's affordability, making York less appealing to newcomers. Housing is another major challenge. While homes are cheaper than the national average, hovering around $180,000 to $190,000, the market is unstable. property values don't hold strong, and many neighborhoods show clear signs of decline, with boarded-up homes and absentee landlords adding to the sense of neglect. The school system reflects the struggles of the community. The York City School District has faced years of financial distress, underperformance, and state intervention. Graduation rates remain below the state average, making it hard for students to break free from the cycle of poverty. Education, often the key to upward mobility, feels like another barrier here. York is a city with layers, rich history, cultural pride, and even moments of beauty, but daily life for many residents tells a different story: poverty, crime, and fragile opportunities. It feels like a place where the past looms larger than the future, and where survival often outweighs growth. York feels like a town stuck between history and hardship. 2. Scranton. Made famous by The Office. Scranton looks charming on television, but reality paints a very different picture. Once the beating heart of Pennsylvania's coal industry, Scranton carries the scars of industrial decline, and those scars run deep into everyday life. The city is home to about 75,000 residents, but the population has been shrinking for decades. Families continue to move away in search of better opportunities, leaving behind struggling neighborhoods. Those who remain face heavy burdens, starting with the property taxes, which are among the highest in the state. For a city already grappling with poverty, these taxes make it even harder for working-class families to hold on to their homes. The job market tells an equally grim story. Unemployment lingers around 7%, and many of the available jobs are low-paying positions in retail, food service, or small-scale healthcare work. Out of 10 working-age adults, only about 6 to 7 have reliable employment, and wages often don't stretch far enough to cover the rising costs of living. This economic instability has fueled the city's ongoing population decline. Crime has also become a growing concern. Scranton's crime rate is higher than the Pennsylvania average, with property crimes, like theft and burglary, being especially common. For families hoping for stability and safety, these challenges weigh heavily on everyday life. Housing, at first glance, seems affordable. The median home price sits near $160,000, making it cheaper than many other Pennsylvania cities. But the catch is resale value. Homes don't appreciate well here, and buyers often find themselves stuck with properties they can't easily sell. For investors or families thinking of long-term stability, Scranton feels like a risky bet. Education reflects the struggles of the economy. The Scranton School District has faced budget deficits, staffing shortages, and underperformance for years. Many parents worry that their children won't receive the kind of education needed to break out of the cycle of hardship. Scranton may have pop culture fame, but behind the humor and nostalgia is a reality of weak jobs, heavy taxes, crime, and decline. For many families, life here is less about opportunity and more about endurance. For many families, Scranton is no laughing matter. 1. Philadelphia. Our journey ends in the heart of Pennsylvania's largest city, Philadelphia. From the Liberty Bell to Independence Hall, history whispers through every brick and cobblestone. But behind the monuments and postcards lies a harsher reality, one that thousands of families face every single day. Philadelphia is home to nearly 1.6 million people, making it the sixth largest city in the United States. Yet for all its size and history, it carries some of the highest violent crime rates in the nation. Neighborhoods like Kensington have become infamous worldwide for open-air drug markets, homelessness, and scenes that feel closer to survival zones than city blocks. Families moving here often find themselves battling not only crime but also the constant fear that comes with it. The economy offers opportunity, but only for some. The median household income hovers around $55,000, which sits below the national average. Unemployment remains stubbornly high in certain neighborhoods, and for every 10 working-age adults, only about 6 or 7 have stable employment. Those who do often find wages eaten up quickly by Philadelphia's high cost of living. Housing paints another complicated picture. While homes are cheaper than in New York or Washington, D.C., prices remain inflated compared to the city's quality of life. Add to that the heavy property taxes, and homeownership becomes less of a dream and more of a financial trap. Renters don't escape either, with rents climbing even as wages stagnate. Education and infrastructure add further strain. Many of Philadelphia's public schools face funding shortages, overcrowding, and underperformance, leaving parents worried about their children's futures. Meanwhile, roads, transit, and public services struggle to keep up with demand. For a city so steeped in history, progress feels frustratingly out of reach. Yet perhaps the most painful image of Philadelphia today is Kensington Avenue, a stretch that has become the epicenter of the nation's opioid crisis. Images of people slumped on sidewalks, tents lining the streets, and crime lurking at every corner have become impossible to ignore. For outsiders, it's shocking. For locals, it's everyday life. Philadelphia remains a city of incredible culture, food, and history, but beneath the surface lies a gamble few families are willing to take. Philly may shine on postcards, but for families looking to build a future, it's a gamble few should take. And there you have it, 10 towns in Pennsylvania you should never move to. From McKeesport's abandoned streets to Philadelphia's risky neighborhoods. These places remind us that not every zip code is a safe investment. Remember, moving isn't just about buying a home, it's about buying into a future, a community, and a way of life. Some towns offer hope. These, sadly, offer warnings. So, what do you think? Have you lived in any of these towns? Do you agree with this list? Share your story in the comments below, because real stories paint the truest picture. And don't forget to subscribe for more journeys across America's hidden truths. Until next time, keep traveling, even if it's just by brain.